Aloha, Sandra Razielli here. I'm at a new spot in Makawao, so let me know how you like it. And it's a nice spot to sit, so I thought we'd start sitting. And sitting means being aware of our hips. Today we're going to pay attention to hips. I'd like you to have enough height to sit on so that you can be in Baddha Konasana, which I know some people love and some people hate. Some people are indifferent, but some people really find it difficult because when the knees are up high, Baddha Konasana is soles of the feet together, knees go out to the side. But for some people, knees easily go out to the side. Other people, for different reasons, have holding and wind up with the knees up here. So when the knees are this high, the legs become much higher than the pelvis, and it's very hard to sit. So I want you to have enough height that you can have your knees so they are either at the level of your pelvis or below. For me, I'm going to take a beach blanket, or a beach towel. But some of you may actually take 2 blocks, and I'll show you what I mean. So if your knees are up this high when you sit in Baddha Konasana, then take 1 block or 2 blocks and bring your feet together, and you see how now my pelvis is over my hips even if my knees are up pretty high. So find the spot that works for you. And I know it's a little bit of a setup, but once you've got it set up, then it's all set up. So find that setup and come into Baddha Konasana just wherever it's at right now. And there's 2 main ways where you can feel this pose. One is you have your feet all the way together, which means your ankles are pretty much in line with your shins. And often, most people just let the inner feet, the side of the big toe, come apart, and then there's a little bit of sickling that actually happens in the ankle. So that extra bit of flexibility or extra bit of movement in the pose isn't coming from the hips, it's actually coming from the ankles. So today I'd like you to just do a little diagnostic first. Bring the soles of your feet together, hold them, and then let your thighs go and notice 2 things. 1, pay attention to how low your thighs go. And 2, pay attention to how it feels in your inner thighs. And as you notice, it's pretty windy here today, so just want to acknowledge that. Ooh, it's been raining off and on quite a bit. Okay, so again, notice how close your knees come to the ground and the tightness here, because one of these things, or both of them, might change as we go through class. So for many people, when we feel something's tight, we feel we want to stretch it. Baddha Konasana, for many people, it's some of the muscles that run through here that are gripping, which is the reason why it's hard to let go. That's not the only reason, but that's a common one. And these muscles, sometimes when you stretch them, they actually respond by getting tighter because they don't want to be pushed and pulled around. They want to feel a sense of safety. So we're going to give them that sense of safety by using blocks. So what I'd like you to do is to take your knees as high as they need to be in order for you not to feel tension here. Remember, that might be sitting up a lot higher too. So you might be sitting up pretty high. And then place your blocks under your knees in such a way that you can allow your thighs to be here without feeling that you need to hold them up. So instead of you holding your legs up, or instead of gripping here, we're going to allow the legs to just release into the blocks. Often, like, we let the jaw soften 1 layer at a time. That's the intention here, is to let the inner thigh soften 1 layer at a time. You can hold onto your feet as you do this. Be on the front edge of your sit bones. Today we're going to hold it for a few minutes. For those of you who are finding that this is a very challenging pose and that this actually feels good, you can hold this for a longer time, like even 20 minutes could be a good practice. 20 minutes a few days in a row or a few times a week for a few weeks might actually create some interesting results. So hold on to the feet, feel your sit bones grounding, encourage your spine to lengthen. Close your eyes and gently guide your breath. anytime you feel you need to make a shift, take note. Did you round your lower back? Come back up on the front edge of your sit bones. That exhalation, allowing for release, of letting go. I like to continue to keep my hands on my feet. It helps me keep the spine long, the shoulder blades down the back. If you find that that is not supportive for you, not supportive of the legs, then place your hands wherever it may feel comfortable. You might just want to drape them over your knees. Place them over your feet, wherever feels right for you. And then come back to the breath. Inhalation, nice and expansive. Exhalation, let your jaw soften, let the inner thighs soften. There's actually a connection between the two. And as you're sitting here, you might notice that you tend to lean to one side more than the other. Take note of that. I tend to lean a little to the right sometimes, so way to feel that is to feel into your sit bones. Encourage same amount of pressure on both of them, even as you let go of the thighs. Remember, each exhalation, letting go one layer. Let the jaw soften. Be here for a little while longer. All right, so let's begin to come out of the pose. To come out of the pose, take your hands to your knees and use your hands to draw your knees up. Put the blocks off to the side. And then let your legs go. And notice those two things. Do you notice that it feels a little different here? Do you notice that your legs go off to the side a little bit? A little bit more. I do have I have a good degree of flexibility or mobility in this direction, so I don't see a lot of difference, but I actually feel that this has let go a little bit, so it feels good for me that was a good practice. So it's one way to play with Baddha Konasana. Another thing you can do, which is actually interesting, is that even though we look at their legs are going out to the side, which is often considered external rotation, there's a few different movements going in here. There's the movement in the thigh bone, it literally just going to the side, and there's also the rotation forward and back in relationship to the way I'm facing you. And for some people, doing an internal rotation of the thigh can actually create some relief here. So I want you to try that by leaning over to your left sit bone, lift the right thigh off the ground, take your left hand to your inner thigh, take your right hand to your sit bone, grab the sit bone, pull it back, and then or the skin around the sit bone, you pull that back, and the flesh, all the good stuff back there, and then also pull the thigh. So you're creating a nice internal rotation of the thigh, and then come back down. And now do the same thing on the other side. Lean over to your right hand on the front of the left thigh, left hand in the back, grab the sit bone, the area around it, pull it back, and then spiral the thigh, and check that out. Now for me, I actually feel that my legs have gone lower, so that if I took the blanket away, then still feel pretty comfortable just sitting flat on the floor. But that's another way, that's a much quicker way than the first one, but I encourage you to try both of them. And it's a good way to prepare for what we're doing next. So let's take a moment, Baddha Konasana. And then bring your hands to your knees, bring your knees together, and extend your legs one at a time. Come into Dandasana. You can see my feet really well in this location. Wiggle your toes a little bit. And then, again, Baddha Konasana. And then come into Upavista Konasana. Take your legs wide. Reach through your heels. Press your thigh bones down. Encourage your spine to lengthen. And hinge forward a little bit. This again will reveal where some of the restrictions are and some of the places of freedom. So when you come forward, you want to keep your spine long, right? We're not rounding in the lower back. I think those of you who've been watching these classes know that by now, but just to show you very clearly, when we come into Upavista Konasana, nothing like this, we hinge forward. So a lot of length here. Hip sockets lift up and over your thigh bones as you hinge forward. And then let's come back up, back into Baddha Konasana, Dandasana. I once took class from a teacher who would do this for like the first 45 minutes of class. Baddha Konasana, Upavista Konasana, and then he would regale us with stories as we just kept going like this. We often held the poses for longer. Baddha Konasana, Dandasana, wiggle your toes. And then come back. I said, let's do this sitting. We're going to do a little bit of tasty toes, playing with the rotations of the thighs. Go ahead and take a hold of your right foot with your left hand. And again, in this, have some height underneath you if you find yourself rounding a lot. But in this, you might round your spine a little as we do this, which is fine. Take your right hand to the right knee and use your hands to move your leg around. So let the leg kind of be heavy in the hands. Usually I do the opposite because I want to have that differentiation of movement, but I'd like you here to move the leg around. Different positions. I call this the tasty toes pose. Notice that the ankle position also affects your hip position. So if you reach through your heel and keep the ankle active, it might have a very different effect on your hip than if you sickle the ankle. That tells us one thing in particular. It tells us that our ankle movements are very much connected to our hips connected to the ankles. So sometimes an ankle injury can lead to some hip issues, but the opposite is good strong ankles and good hip can help with hip mobility. Okay, so then begin to straighten and bend the knee a little bit as you take it different angles. You can rotate it internally, a little externally. Just play. Go out in the garden, be around plants, and play with the movements of your legs in different directions. That can be a fun thing to do. All right, go ahead and release that side. And let's do the same thing on the other side. A little tasty toes. Take a hold of the foot. Move the leg around. Explore. Let yourself be playful. How does my leg move? Isn't it amazing that it moves? When do I get angry at how it moves? How do I deal with when I get frustrated with how it moves? Do I move it more? Do I move it less? Or do I move it differently? It's bending and straightening, moving it around. You might find like I was leaning back. You can lean back a little and then shift forward. Noticing that you'll get different spots. All right, let's come back to the first side. And this time, just take a moment, move it around again. And then take your right foot to the outside of your left thigh. If it does not go there comfortably, take it in front of the shin. So we have the foot on the ground, right foot on the ground. Even out your sit bones. Interlace your fingers, draw your knee in towards your chest. Inhale, exhale. We're going to take a little time or a little more time than usual to come into a twist. Twisting to the right. What I'd like you to do when you're twisting is hold your knee, press your hands into the knee, keep your spine long, and we're going to keep our hands here because I want to really focus the twist on the lower belly. So on your exhalation, spiral to the right, taking your time to really move from the belly. You can't see what I'm doing because my belly, because my knees are in front of it, but you can get a sense of the inhale, lift and lengthen, exhale, spiral. Notice I'm not moving a lot in my head or my neck yet. And the position of the arms is going to prevent me to some extent from going too really far in this pose. So I can focus. And that's another reason we're doing that, is it actually can be beneficial for the hips and for your Baddha Konasana. Okay, so when I feel I've gotten about as far as I'm going to go, except my neck, I'll turn my head. And then I'm going to come back with the head and wrap my left arm around my shin. Press the forearm into the thigh. Inhale, lift and lengthen spine. And now go more fully into the twist. The right hand can go somewhere behind your back. So inhale, lifting, lengthening. Exhale, spiraling. Right. I encourage you to reach the right arm on out. Look at the fingers of the right hand. Mine's hiding behind a plant, but turn your head. One more inhalation. On the exhalation, unwind. It feels really good in my belly. And go ahead and release, extend the right leg, wiggle the toes, rock the leg a little in and out. And we'll go the second side. So second side. A little bit of the tasty toes. And then take your left foot to the outside of the right thigh or in front of the shin. Interlace your fingers, opposite interlace, opposite thumb on top. Draw your knee in towards your chest, lengthen your spine. Breathe. And then take your time on the exhalation. Spiral to the left. Keep holding onto the knee. Inhale, lift and lengthen. Exhale, spiral. Shoulder blades firm. Letting yourself feel into the belly. You might feel some folds. You might feel some gurgling sounds that happen. Good. And then go ahead and wrap the right arm around the leg. Let yourself go a little bit further up the spine. Extend the left arm. Turn the palm to face up. And then go ahead and unwind. Spine nice and long. Go ahead, extend your left leg, the right leg. Let's check out Baddha Konasana. How does it feel? Mine feels pretty good. So for those of you who have a greater degree of mobility and you feel like you want to develop more, not necessary, but there are some practices you can do if you want to with Baddha Konasana. One thing you can play with, or creating different levels of mobility in different places, is you can place a block between your thighs. That can be an interesting practice. It can reveal some restrictions in other places. Another practice that I don't really do much anymore is, but I remember that teacher I was telling you about who went between Dandasana, Upavista Konasana, and Baddha Konasana would do this practice where you lift your feet, so the soles of your feet face up, and then, I'm not going to do this, but he would lift his feet off the ground, and that's one of those, I think, an extreme level of mobility that I am not trying to attain, but that you can imagine the feet lifting up with the knees staying on the ground. If it's important to you, go for it. It's not my thing. One way you could practice that also is sitting on a block. So if I do it on a block, let's see, yeah, then you get the idea. See the feet come up, whoops. And then the knees maybe, my knees don't go down, but some people's knees would go down. But I think I wrote a blog about it recently. I'm very much into having mobility, agility in the hips, but not necessarily always getting towards more and more open hips. I do really firmly, strongly advocate and believe that a good level of hip mobility is the ability to sit on the ground fairly comfortably, and if you can do that, the rest can be kind of fun, but it can also be damaging, because if you have too much mobility and not enough strength, you wind up being very floppy in your body, and over time that's not great for your ligaments or other parts as well. All right, enough of that. Let's lie down. A little bit more, playing with the movements. One of the things, that, even though I talk about a lot not focusing on openness, one thing that is interesting with the hips is to notice where they move easily and where there's challenges. So I'd like you to play a little in just reclined position with a little, kind of like the tasty toes, just moving your leg around in different directions. Because you may notice that going to the side in one direction it goes really far, but going the other way it doesn't. And then you may find that because it's easier one way, you do that easier way often, and you skip the other way. So move the leg around in many ways that you can conjure up, internal rotation, external rotation, in different positions. And notice, are there certain spots that feel a little trickier? And if you find one, for me it's usually in an internal rotation, can you just move a little bit in that spot? You don't have to move a lot, just a little bit. And that way you can create more balance in your body. Also with the idea that you don't, when that area becomes more easeful, then when you just go about your day and the daily movements, you're expanding your movement vocabulary, so you're positioning yourself in more positions throughout the day than you might have before. Let's switch the other leg, left leg, that kind of tasty toes idea, just moving the leg around different directions. You might find you want to have a lift under your head. So here I'm moving the hip joint, and we're also moving the knee joint, the ankle joint. Let's come back to the first side. Come back to the right side. Take your right ankle over your left knee. The figure four, traditional figure four. But then instead of bringing left knee into your chest, rock your pelvis a little side to side. So keep your shoulders on the ground, but rock your legs a little side to side. With the intention of feeling it around the lower abdomen, the lower spine. And then bring your left knee towards your chest and do the same thing with the legs in a little bit different position. You can vary the position of the left thigh. And again, notice, like we did before, there's certain areas that your body tends to move more easily. Other areas where there's a little more restriction. Sometimes just moving slowly through those areas where there's more restrictions can change the level of restriction, because there's the aspect that it's the muscles and bones, tissues that are the restriction, but sometimes it's also how the brain perceives what's going on. So sometimes when you move into a spot you haven't moved in much, and then the brain says, oh, I guess that's an okay spot to move. Okay, I'll move there more often. I mean, it doesn't have that exact conversation, but that's kind of what's happening. It's release, or that is what's happening. And take a moment. Inhale, exhale. Left ankle over right thigh. Bring the right knee in towards your chest. Oh, sorry. Let's rock a little side to side first. This was my favorite part of this practice, so I don't want to skip it. Yeah, rocking the pelvis a little side to side. I really like how it feels in the lower belly and how that connects to the inner thighs. And then bring the knee towards the chest, rock a little side to side. And then release. Wiggle your toes a little. Now, take your right thigh and place it over your left thigh. Like if you were sitting at a cocktail party. And then, once you're there, let's do a little rocking side to side again of the hips. This is something I haven't done much and I've been playing with recently, and I'm finding I really like it a lot. Especially for those of you extra curvy folks. I find it's a really nice way to open up the concavity. When I have the leg of the convexity crossed over the leg of the concavity, and then I twist away from the direction of the concavity. And then you might bring your knees a little closer in. So this is also like doing a reclined eagle pose. So to play with it more, go ahead and lift your feet up, wiggle the toes of your right foot, and then walk them under, or move towards walking them under your left ankle, your left calf. And you're in eagle position with the legs. You might take the legs around again. So it's like bend, when we're in eagle pose, how we sometimes stand and bend the knees more or less. What we can do here. And then release, extend the legs. And second side, left thigh over right. And rock a little side to side. Bring the knees towards the chest. And then lift the feet. Wiggle the toes of your left foot. And then take them around underneath the right calf in that direction. Eagle legs. Move around. All right, and then release. And a little tetrasana again. Moving around. Go ahead and find your strap. Let's do a little bit of classic Supta Padangustasana, but with movement. Instead of holding the pose, take the strap around your right foot and explore. You can keep the left knee bent for now. Reach through the heel. Feels good. Take both ends of the strap into the right hand and then extend your left leg. And let's slightly externally rotate your right thigh. Take the leg out to the side. Keep the left leg active. And give your leg enough support so you're not hanging, but you're moving gently. An alternative for this, if it doesn't feel great, is to put this block under your thigh. Put the block under the right thigh. So again, you're getting some more length or attention to the inner thigh. Those of you with a greater degree of mobility there, you might take a hold of your big toe. And then find one position, hold that position with active legs. Right, to come up, bend your knee. Right, and bring the knee into your chest, give it a nice gentle hug. Let's draw the chin towards your chest, reach through your left leg. A little rounding sometimes is fine. Release your chest down, take your hand to the back of your thigh, press your hands into your thigh, find your hands, straighten the leg. Good, and then bend your right knee, release. Feel your legs next to each other. Second side. Bend both knees. Bring the left knee into your chest. Take the strap on your left foot. Extend the left leg, foot into strap, strap into foot. And explore the range of motion. So rotations, internal, external, legs side to side, up and down. Around and around. And then extend the right leg and come to classic Supta Padangusthasana 2, where you take your left leg out to the side. Again, you can choose to have the block under the thigh. Find a spot to hold after you've moved it a little bit. I have a wall, and actually the wall is nice because you can put the foot against the wall, but sometimes you got to move a little out of the way. All right, and then bend the left knee. Come back on up. A little Tetrasana. And make your way up. Roll on over, make your way up to all fours. We were on the ground for a while, so let's just get the spine moving a little by circling the hips. With more pelvis circles, so you're getting a little of the spine movement. And then switch directions. And then a little bit of cat and cow. Just gentle movements today. Easing with our hips. And then you can choose either puppy pose or downward facing dog. And then come down onto your knees, cross your left ankle over your right, roll over your ankles so you come to cross-legged. And let's play with a little bit of that eagle style, where you take your right thigh over your left thigh. Now some of you may not find this accessible. If that's the case, do what we did earlier with the foot up. Otherwise, thighs come on top of each other and place your hands onto your feet. Take a moment here. You might choose to hinge forward a little, feeling the resistance someplace. For those of you who find that if you hinge quite a bit, you might let your upper body round forward. This can feel very relaxing and nourishing. Inhale, come up. and over to the other side. Switch across of the legs. Again, the foot on the ground or the thighs crossing each other. No strain in the knee, please. Hands on the feet, a nice neural connection of the hands and the feet. Maybe stay here or a little bit of hinging. I didn't show this on the first side, but you can always take the block. So the neck and upper back can round, but just not the lower back as you come forward. And inhale, come on up. All right, and let's, one more time, come into Dandasana just for a moment, wiggle your toes, and then check out Baddha Konasana. Be on the same height that you were at the beginning, and notice those two things. Is the position of the knees different? And is the sensation and the feeling of the legs, has there been any shift? And I do feel a lot of release in the center, in the inner thigh area. So I found this was a good practice for me. I hope it has been for you. Let's take a little time for Shavasana. Take your hands to your knees, bring your knees together, and go ahead and make space where you can lie down comfortably. Arms by your side, palms face up. Let your jaw soften. Let your breath flow. Let the flow of the breath guide you to Shavasana, to relaxation. And then slowly and gently bring your awareness back to your body, back to your breath. And bring a little movement to your fingers. Bring a little movement to your toes. Reach a little through your arms, reach a little through your legs. Bend one knee at a time. Roll over to your side. Make your way up to sitting, any seated position that feels appropriate for you. Sit bones ground, spine lengthen. Just bring your palms together over your heart. May the attention, the slow movements, your presence, and just your willingness to practice support greater sense of comfort, ease, joy, and freedom. Namaste. All right. Thank you again for joining me. Let me know what you think about this new location. I know today was very, very windy, so you may have seen a little shaking. But in general, let me know if you like this location, because it's very close to where I live and be a nice place for me to set up. Of course, I'll share other locations with you too as I continue to explore the island and we continue to explore our hips. Mahalo, aloha.